And that was only the kickoff of today. And today and tomorrow we have a lot of big panels coming up. But I'm sure you're here for a little show called Game of Thrones. You know that? Game of Thrones? Ladies and gentlemen, I've got 4 guests lined up, and I won't let you wait any longer. Give it up for our first guest, George Georgiou! Hello, make some noise! Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Natalia Tena! Give it up for Portman! Well, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Gwendoline Christie! Hello, we're really excited to have you here. How's your day going? How are you guys feeling? How's Dortmund treating you so far? Are you okay?
It's been great, actually, and I'm so happy to see everyone again. It's a really long time, and it's a very joyful day.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it's just the start of a beautiful Saturday. So we're here, of course, you heard the noise that they made when I said Game of Thrones. We're here to talk about that, amongst a few other things. And let's dive right into like the beginning of that process. Before Game of Thrones became shown, it was a novel, and everyone was just waiting for the novel to turn into either a film or a TV series. Of course, auditions started, you got cast into the role. What was that process like for you as an actor? Because it started out with a lot of secrecies right off the bat, I can imagine. What was the audition process? Let's start with you, Gwendoline. What was the audition process for you, and up until the point that you actually got cast into the role?
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for coming today and this weekend. It is a delight to see you all. Thank you. Really, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for continuing to love the show that has really meant so much to all of us and changed all of our lives, you know. I first became aware of Game of Thrones when I was told about an audition for it, and for this character, and I was just told the name of the character, not much about it at all really, and then I looked up the character and I read the description online, and it was a real lightning bolt moment, because I felt like this was a description of a woman that I'd never seen on television, and also it was a description of a woman having an experience which was very personal to me, and quite a unique experience as a woman as well, of being very statuesque, extremely tall, strong, androgynous looking, and often being challenged for not fitting into the conventions of femininity by those around her, and a desire to serve a cause greater than herself. And it was a moment, I remember when I was at drama school being told, if you are very lucky, one day you will find a part that speaks to you and there will be no work involved. Now, it did speak to me, but there was a lot of work involved. Because I knew the differences between me and the character internally were not so many, but physically were vast. And I decided that I had to play this part. I knew within me, I knew within my blood and my soul, I had to play this part. It was my reason for being an actor. And I finally had found something that spoke to me. So I read the books as much as I could. I read the first 3, and they were huge. I mean, as you all know, they are huge tomes. Yes. And I thought, this is intimidating. But I started the books, and I fell in love with them, because the way that George R. R. Martin was dealing with story felt truly unconventional. And they whipped along like the best kind of movie, women were at the forefront. I remember thinking, oh, it's such a shame because they put all the women in the background, and the women have got such great stories, but they didn't do that. They honoured the books, and they preserved those characters, and they kept them at the forefront of the show. You know, back then, it must have been about 2011 when I was auditioning, maybe 2010, 2011 I think. That was not really seen on television. It was a different social and entertainment landscape. So it felt quite revolutionary. And then I set about trying to address all of the differences between the character and myself. And I knew I had to really work on my strength and fitness. So I lost a lot of weight, I gained a lot of muscle, and I started kickboxing, boxing, doing some really kind of horrific aerobics in public places, being made to roll in muck by my great friend, who's an extremely successful makeup artist now. She trained me, she was a fitness fanatic, and she set about a brutal regime for me. I tried to find places that did sword fighting. I couldn't find them, but I wanted to do everything. And I also, because I was extremely conventionally feminized, I had long hair then, I'd never had anything other than long hair. So I took my hair away. I started wearing my hair back and no makeup, and looking at the way I walked and the way I would distribute my weight and what I might be fearful of in terms of presenting myself. And I worked on getting in contact with the more sensory side of myself, what might be perceived as more conventionally masculine aspects that I was scared of. And I allowed myself in those maybe 3 months or just 2 to 3 months before the audition to really try to enter a different space. And it was a space that I was very scared of. And it was important to me to open that up. And I loved reading the books. I actually loved the whole process. I had a sort of bananas regime where I'd get up in the morning and do yoga and meditation and walk my friends' dogs for 4 hours and do my running, do my fight, do everything I possibly could. I was so dedicated to getting this role. And it was the first time as well, I think, I'd given everything I had to get the role. And so I did the first audition, and they were great, and they knew I was very prepared. And then the second audition was maybe 15 minutes long.
Oh, wow.
And I thought,
that's fairly short.
I thought I'd never been in that position before, and I thought either I've got it, or probably more likely I've blown it. And then 5 days later, they called me and said I had the part that changed the course of my career and my life. And it was one of the best moments I've experienced. I'm very grateful.
Thank you for sharing that. So Daniel, follow that. How many auditions did you do?
So
the bar is set very high, I just want to say.
It starts on a cold February morning in 1992. My casting process was a lot simpler. Originally I was auditioned for 2 small parts in season 2, which both died in season 2. And I thought I'd gone in and done a great job. Nothing happened with those parts. I was recalled. I think I went in 3 times. And then maybe a month later I was asked back to come down and audition for Podrick. There wasn't any real plans for the character at that stage. The scene that I auditioned with was a scene from a couple of seasons down the line, a scene actually which would have taken place between Gwen and I. And yeah, I left the audition room and I got the call the next day. And yeah, I was 19, I hadn't really done a great deal of stuff. I'd never worked outside of Scotland. I'd done a few plays and a couple of films. And Yeah, I think originally, I mean, I was told there wasn't a plan for the character beyond season 2. It was set in stone, but they enjoyed what I brought to the character, that they ended up writing him into series 3, subsequently 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So in a very similar vein, you know, it was the thing that launched my career, changed my life. And it's really, really very cool to see this many people still sort of turn out at a convention to hear us talk about it. So thank you very, very much.
Natalia, how did it start for you? Yes.
So I remember the first. Okay, bear in mind we didn't really know what the books were. I hadn't read the books. I just thought it was a kind of normal audition actually. And I've got a band called Molotov Jukebox, and we were playing at a festival. And I read it, and I was like, okay, this woman is some forest woman. I didn't really understand what a wildling was. And she's in handcuffs. So at the festival I was at, they had a lot of decoration, and I took a lot of the decoration. So I went to this audition, like, in a brown dress with, like, vines everywhere, and some handcuffs. And I handcuffed. I think they thought, you know, sometimes you're like, I think I took it too far. You're doing an audition, like, I look mental and I'm dead. But yeah, I got a second audition. And I, again, pushed it a bit far, because I was like, I spent like half the audition talking about why I thought my character was a raccoon, like an animal. And then, I thought, they think I'm mental. But it worked, and I got the job. And for me, I didn't realize the level of it, like how big it was going to be, maybe till season 2. Season 2, that's when it really hit me, like, wow, this is a really massive show, because we were just there at the very, very beginning, so it kind of, in a way, it wasn't intimidating. It felt like a fun new job, you know? But yeah, I agree with them, I'm very thankful, it was amazing, and I can't believe I got the gig.
What was the adventure like for you, George?
For me, I didn't know the show, but then I got the script. I was like, this is special. It was like reading, you know, like a modern Shakespeare in a way. It had quality above most TV shows, I thought, straight away. And it was just such a pleasure to work with such great writing, really. So I'd never played anyone so regal. I normally get cast playing terrorists and drug dealers and people smugglers. So it was really lovely to play somebody so regal, and got to wear beautiful outfits and lots of makeup, which is two of my most favorite things.
Thanks so much. And I love hearing, you know, how passionate you are about the audition process and getting into that, and like you said, maybe taking it a bit too far during the audition. But I wasn't familiar or I knew the novels, but I hadn't read them. And I was preparing for a Comic Con, and the first panel I had to do was Game of Thrones. So that's a few weeks in advance I started watching the show. And the first thing I noticed was, like, these people aren't acting. Like, you can literally see that passion that you have portraying that character, and all of them, all of you see that on screen. It got me hooked from the first second. So that's a compliment to the way you portray the character. Gwendoline, you talked a little bit about the physicality of the show. I can imagine with all of the stunts that you have to do, and all of the new training that all of you have to learn, there are some physical challenges, stunt-wise, but maybe also weather-wise, because you are on location a lot. Let's start with Natalia. What were your like, you nodded when you heard weather? What were your the challenges that were the biggest for you?
I was so jealous of these guys going to, like, Croatia and Spain, especially I'm Spanish, and I was like, oh, can I get that? Look, Belfast is an amazing city, but the weather is terrible, and we were always filming around autumn, winter, and obviously the costumes are so, you know, they're done so meticulously and perfectly that they work for the time and the era. But my character is basically a medieval bag lady, so I had, like, a bit of wrapped and, like, thin bit of cloth, and we were outside in the rain, in the freezing rain, in a forest. Rain. It was so hot. I remember finishing work and, like, I signed up to a swimming pool nearby, and I'd go for a sauna for an hour, and then swim, and then I'd have a whiskey when I got back to the hotel, and that's when I finally felt warm after a day of work. It was that for me was a big thing that was my hurdle. I didn't really have any stunts, so I think that was probably, maybe that was your challenge in that one, but for me it was the weather, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And when I was going to say, you talked about the getting fit for the parts, slimming down, but also gaining muscles and doing a lot of stunts. I assume you did a lot of them yourself as well. What was that like, preparing for a choreographed stunt scene?
It was really tough, but I loved the challenge of it. What was important to me was this really vibrant character, unlike a female character I'd seen on television ever before, and I wanted to do her justice. I really wanted to bring her to life. And the wonderful thing about this, the script always had the depth of the character that the book had. So in reading the books, it would only enrich that character for me and guide me as to how to bring her to life. The stunt process was really tough because I'd never done anything like that before. I'd done fencing at drama school, but that was kind of it. So it was starting from the beginning, but I had such enthusiasm for it, and we had the brilliant C.C. Smith who trained me at the very beginning, and then we worked together on Star Wars a bit later. But he was just so kind and generous and tough, but he really encouraged me and took such great care of me that I felt like I was capable of it. And I'd be wearing the armor. It was only at the end I found out quite how heavy all of that costume was, but I always thought, well, Brienne will be wearing armor, so she'd probably feel pretty annoyed too by the weight of it. And it was tough to go through those stunts. But I just loved embodying the character and the choreography of it and committing to the story of the fight. That's the thing I found most interesting, was bringing it to life as a narrative. But it was really tough, and Daniel really went through it as well, and at least we pretty much always had each other. I remember when we were shooting the fight with the hound, though, there were freak weather conditions, and it was meant to be overcast for 3-4 days, and instead it was blistering sunshine. So we were doing that fight, of which is pretty much me doing that over those 3 days, and it was one of the most brutal physical experiences it's probably the most brutal physical experience I've really ever had, certainly at work, but in my life. And it was just it was all consuming. And I think in the CC kept the focus on the story always. So all the emotions that you go through after a couple of days, that you're exhausted and it's relentless, and you're shooting for that, 10, 12, 14, 26-hour day, and it was really brutal. But at the end, I was lucky enough to work with Rory McCann, who is a gentleman. He's someone with a great sense of compassion, kindness, and love to his fellow actors, and he did his best to never do me any harm. Although I think we did slip. I know we slipped more than a few times with each other, right in the kisser. But it was a glorious experience, actually, because it was really engaging. All the physical was engaging, it was emotional, and I was very grateful to pretty much always have Daniel to hold on to, and him say, "It's all right."
I didn't have so many physical challenges. Most of what I did was watching.
That is a lot of a challenge.
I mean, there's a lot of. Mostly, I think there was a little bit of fighting, And it was a different challenge, I think, was horse riding and sword fighting. I was quite good at before the show started, and then had to play being useless on a horse, which is actually quite tricky, to be able to make the same mistakes and be able to repeat them over and over and over again for 2 or 3 days at a time. And still have control of the horses is tricky. But mostly it was just watching Gwen and occasionally being beaten up.
Yeah, that's so not true. You were beaten up, you were dumped in a river in studded leather.
Yeah, studded leather.
Which is not as fun as it sounds.
No. Lots of fun to be had in studded leather, but not when you're in a fast-flowing river in November in Northern Ireland, and the temperature of your human body is forgotten about. But yes, mostly it was the weather. I think that was the trickiest. And actually, one scene that I remember we had, the biggest challenge. To this day, I still can't eat mushrooms because we had to eat a bunch of mushroom pies in a
47.
something, yeah. And I remember after the second day of shooting this scene, I was in my hotel, Gwen was in her hotel, and we were both lying, just texting each other, help. It was honestly the worst thing I've ever had to do. I mean, it was. My mushrooms are still off the menu for the foreseeable future. There's a PTSD involved that I'm just not ready to deal with. So yeah, those were my challenges.
Thank you. What would you say?
Can I just say, Gwendoline's fight scene was just, I remember it so clearly. I remember texting you going, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was just amazing, the one with the hound that went on. It was emotional to watch. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It blew me away watching it. And it was, congratulations, that was a lot of work.
It really was.
Yeah. You could see it.
Thank you.
I had nothing like that. I was in the desert in Morocco for season 3, and it was 45 degrees, and what was awful is I had to be carried in a carriage, so there was about 20 people carrying me, and so the guilt was tough. I kept going, as soon as they say cut, I'd jump off and I'd be giving out water going, is this necessary? Is this necessary? But they had to carry me for quite a long time to get to the actual, to get to the extent. It was a massive, well, it's just a massive way to get to where the tents were in the desert. But it was very, very hot. So the complete opposite to Belfast. I'm so sorry.
So, of course, what happened at one point is that the TV show gained in on the novel, so the TV show was further than the novels, and the screenwriters had to come up with, you know, what George R.R. Martin would have to come up with. That's when the show really started to get into the secrecy stuff a lot. What's that like for all of you as actors to get? I imagine you don't get entire pieces of script.
I found it because I was there 1, 2, 3, and then I was gone till 6 or something. Came back just to die. Woo! But yeah, and then when I came back that second time, I was like, no, I only got the scenes I was in. And I was like, okay. And it just felt on set like there were no names on the doors. It just felt like a very, well, with us it felt like more fun and kind of more chilled. And so I think it kind of was elevated to a whole, lockdown situation. That's what I meant.
And it's amazing how that wasn't the case in season 1, I presume, right? Fairly early on, or?
Well, I think what was always brilliant about the show from the very beginning is that it was never perceived as an automatic success. It was always seen as this sort of outsider thing, this fantasy thing, based on some books, and really nobody could have predicted the astronomical success that it had. But in the beginning, I was just very aware that it was brilliant writing, there were really good actors, everyone was totally committed. It was quite low key. and we were all very bonded because we were there all the time. It sort of felt like doing a play because it felt like an ensemble piece. So even people you didn't have scenes with, you would mix with,
we were all in two hotels.
with, yeah. We'd all socialise together, and there is a great beauty in getting a lot of outsider actors together to do something which is not considered to be a success when everyone is hugely dedicated to making this drama come alive. And it was a colossal surprise to us all that it became successful, but at its roots it had total authenticity with people that genuinely loved the material, loved our characters, loved each other, loved the dynamics, loved all the cast and crew involved. It was meaningful. And I think that's what really helped to separate it away from other things, is that it truly was meaningful. I mean, you know, when I see these people now, we've not seen each other for years, so long,
Exactly,
we still feel the same love because it was very real from the beginning. And there is really nothing like an outside success. There's nothing like the outside chance winning. There's a special kind of magic to that, I think.
And as an actor, of course, you portray these roles. You start a job, you finish a job. A lot of people love it, hopefully, and then usually you go on to another project. But with Game of Thrones, the same with Harry Potter and Star Wars, of course, it opens up this world to Comic Con, which is very new territory, and not many actors know about Comic Con, but all of you, of course, do. What's that experience been like for you, Daniel? Let's start off with you. To not just be on Game of Thrones, but also get into this world of Comic Con and having people dress up as your character.
Yeah, I can't really think of any negatives to the experience. It's such a profoundly positive thing to see people appreciate the work that you've done, and I think there's no better place really than Comic Con to get that. You know, I think so many people in our industry and in other industries never really have this kind of outpouring of appreciation and love and support from total strangers, really, you know, that you're only connected through this show. So it's a hugely positive thing. And I mean, for me, I did a lot of Comic Cons in the first few seasons. I was in my early 20s and it allowed me to travel the world. I went to India, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Thailand, all over the world, and it's all been because of people who supported the show, still support the show. So we were actually talking backstage that, you know, we want to get another Comic Con job so we can keep the thing going, you know, because it's great, it's lovely, and it's so nice to meet so many people from different walks of life. And also, as Gwen said, it's a great opportunity to see people that you were, you know, very, very close with for a long time, and that you do get to rekindle these relationships and rediscover these bonds. And a lot of the time as an actor, you go from one job, as you said, to the next, and that's just your life. But having a platform like this, which allows you to kind of have a toe dipped into the thing that was such a huge part of your life for so long, is special and unique. And yeah, I think we're all very, very grateful for it.
And I think it's interesting that what you said, you get to keep in touch with your castmates as well, and with the immense skill that Game of Thrones had, I assume that you know, Georgiou to meet a lot of people from the cast that you didn't even see on set. What's that like for you, being on Comic Con? I think you didn't have any. Did you have scenes with Gwendoline?
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't have any scenes.
Yeah.
No, so I didn't have scenes with any.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
So it's been great. It's like having an extended family, you know, and I've worked with other Game of Thrones cast outside of Game of Thrones, and you know, the first thing you have like a very quick friendship built, you know, with just all the people you know and the experiences you've had together. So it's it's just, it's a great show just to be part of a family. I've never worked on a show where I felt that before. It's quite unique in that way. And
it's an immense shared experience.
Yeah.
I would assume. Yeah. So I'm not sure whether you have any, but do you have like a favorite fan encounter moment from either Comic Con or based on Game of Thrones or Star Wars or one of the other that you say like I will never forget that fan moment?
I did a Comic Con in Australia 7-8 years ago maybe, and I was actually invited to a wedding that was taking place at the event.
Wow!
Somebody was getting married at Comic Con, and they asked myself and Finn Jones, who played Loris Tyrell, to be special guests at their wedding. I went. It was during the day. It was at the convention, and yeah, I mean, you couldn't not go. Somebody's asked you.
Did you approximate a costume?
I couldn't. I simply didn't have the time. I would have. It wasn't for lack of trying. There just wasn't. There wasn't enough time. But it was what it was. It was what it was. It was something I'll never forget. As you say.
Amazing! Wow! So, of course, the show has ended, it has concluded, but now there's a spin-off. The novels are still finishing up. There's another spin-off that's, I think it's officially been announced, or there are rumors that it's coming.
Which one? Sorry, because I only know House of the Dragon.
And there's another one that they're talking about. Yeah. So it might be there soon. Is it a world that, would the question come, you would love to revisit, like maybe in flashback episodes or you know?
Definitely take any job involved. Yes.
And Gwendoline, with that character, has it come full circle for you, or would it be, are there still areas with Brienne that you would still love to explore further?
I feel immeasurably lucky to have played Brienne of Tarth. It was a really significant experience for me. And I think maybe one day to revisit it would be a great thing, you know, in some form. I think the circumstances would have to be right. I think the people involved would have to be right. It would have to feel like it was justified and it was doing the character justice, you know? Because I think I had such a meaningful experience with the character, and it's really allowed me to go on, not just in terms of work, but myself, in terms of an evolution of self, and as an actor, wanting to do radically different things. And I've been very fortunate in that I've been given opportunities to do radically different parts since then, which I've thoroughly enjoyed because I've always been invested in transformation. So I think one day, but maybe right now, too soon.
Yeah.
Well, there's flashbacks. Like, we're getting older than our characters now, so it'd be quite tricky to do.
They could do all that stuff.
It is like Mark
but also like a flashback. Everyone on the stage deserves more than a flashback.
I mean, have you seen what they've done with Mark Hamill? I mean,
He doesn't need it. I've seen Mark. He doesn't need it. He looks like that. They age him in the films. It's aging makeup.
Well, thank you so much. I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately I'm out of time for the panel, and you still have some photo shoots and you're signing at the table. So for now, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you later. Give it up for the cast.